Hi, how you doing? In this video, as you can tell, it's a bit of an experiment. I'd like to talk a little bit about different stances within classical pugilism, the benefits to those stances, the pros and cons, and also why they've evolved to be the way they are. And the first one we're going to look at is Daniel Mendoza's stance. Now, if I've got this right, you should be able to see Daniel Mendoza in his stance right next to me here. Don't know if I've got it, but effectively what we're looking at is a relatively square-on stance. The feet are, I'm not going to talk too much about them because you can't see them, but they're both facing pretty much forwards. The body's inclined forwards, the hands are brought up together, and you've got a slight lead, but only a slight, one hand in front of the other, which matches the lead leg. And that's a very, very basic stance within classical pugilism. Daniel Mendoza was hugely successful using this style of fighting from this stance. And I'd like to talk a little bit about why that was. Now, the things that we know about Daniel Mendoza are not only that he was very good at fighting, but he was actually quite a small man. He was a middleweight at best, and this was in an era where people didn't cut weight for competition. So he was a genuine middleweight at best. He was giving up inches of reach, he was giving up a lot of weight to his opponents, yet he still managed to beat them. And one of the reasons that he did that is that he was effectively taking away their advantage. He was extremely skilled at infighting, at getting in close and at fighting in that close-in position. He was very good at deflecting blows. If you read Mendoza's manual, he talks an awful lot about counterpunching, about blocking and then coming in with a strike. He talks about rising punches and counterpunching in while someone steps into you. It's all about getting inside that long range point at which your opponent has the advantage because they're bigger than you. And what Mendoza needs for that is a stance that allows him to close in the most stable way possible. He wants to be relatively square on. He doesn't want to be at an angle, because if as he closes at an angle he's pushed or his arm is blocked, it's going to turn him around, it's going to put him at a fairly significant disadvantage. What he's looking at doing is getting inside and getting some serious strikes in and using this short range ability that he had to his advantage. Now, the other thing that Mendoza's very clear about in his manual is that you have to be able to use each hand effectively. So most of the pugilists and pretty much everyone in England was famed for fighting with a left lead. And you look at some of the other stances, people like Johnson's stance, people like Humphreys, and they're fighting in a much more side-on position, and that's exaggerated hugely when you start getting to the transitional pugilism of the period where the London prize ring became the Marquis of Queensberry's rules. But that's a long time after Mendoza. What Mendoza's looking for is being able to get inside, being able to strike you with a right or a left, being able to close distance, being able to deflect your blows off to the side, and to do all of that as effectively as possible. And to do that, he needs to be relatively square on. So that's why you see in the pictures of Mendoza fighting, you see him fighting square on with his chest out, his shoulders square, his hips square, his hands raised up in front, he's ducking his chin down, and he's arching his abdomen back away so that if there are any strikes coming out to the mark, then he's able to slip away from them. But from that position he's also able to throw himself backwards in order to avoid any strikes to the head. And what he can do with that is he can effectively avoid strikes by leaning backwards, by inclining his body backwards, keeping his feet where they are, which allow him then to come forward again very quickly and enable him to then take advantage of that short range technique that he's so good at. Anyway, that's a quick look at Mendoza's stance, and in further videos we'll look at some of the other stances, we'll look at some of the other things about the great fighters. But that's why you see a lot of Mendoza's pictures here, you see a lot of modern pugilism, people who are recreating these systems fighting in this chest on, hips square, both hands forward, hunched down, inclined forward position, because it's hugely effective at closing distance and getting to infighting. Anyway, I hope that's been informative. Take care guys, and I'll see you around soon.